Today I'm going to make a brief video. You may not think it's that brief. I'm going to try to keep it around 30 minutes to discuss the upcoming research paper that is your final exam. We'll look at the topics very quickly just to make sure that you understand how to approach it. We'll talk about where to find the sources that you'll need for the research part, what you need to be looking for in those sources, and making sure that you are following proper MLA formats. We're going to review all those, and hopefully everything will be doing well for you. So, of course, under the modules, we'll start there. Give it a moment. I'm using an older laptop to record this, and it's a little slow at times, but eventually it works. So here's your research paper. Have an example of one from the 23-27 course, and then here's the assignment, and you, of course, will also submit it here. So you click on this, and hopefully you've already been looking at it, as I'm sure you have been, and looking at the topic. The details are listed here for you, so that when you're looking at this, it talks about any literary analysis paper, what it's supposed to be like, what you're supposed to be doing for it. And then, of course, the details go on about the objective is to offer an argued position on the topic, where you take a particular topic, one of the three that are listed for you, and you present a claim that you will then prove by carefully looking at the different works of literature that you plan to analyze and connect to the points. It is not a history, it's not a report, it's not about biographical aspect about the authors. That's not part of it. You are to follow MLA format, which means, first of all, this handout is not in MLA formatting. This is not an essay. Your essay needs to conform to MLA standards, meaning you will have an essay that is double-spaced. You will have a header at the top on the right-hand side. You'll have a heading on the left-hand side. The header is done by inserting a header, and that will appear on every page. The heading is only on the first page. The heading will consist of your name, my name, the course, and the date. Then you hit enter, center, put the title of your research paper, which is not research paper, but should reflect the approach you're taking. Then you hit enter, go back to the left margin, hit the tab button, and then you start typing your paper. You should go into your settings and make sure it's set at double spaced, so that you do not have to go in and mark your essay. This is not set at double spaced, as hopefully you can tell that this is not double spaced here. This is set up just to present the information. You will use a font that is between 10 and 12 for all aspects. That means the header, the heading, the title, the essay itself, the research paper itself, the title works cited, and the entries on the works cited page are all done in the same size font and the same style font. Also, for an essay, you do not have sections. This is one continuous research paper. You flow from one paragraph to the next with easy transitions. You do not put a section in it. Do not have sections. When you refer to any of the literary works, as you discuss those, you will use present tense for that aspect. You do not need to put any I's, we's, or you's, or any of the other first-person pronouns and second-person pronouns. The reader is not writing this essay with you, so don't say, we see this, or we recognize this, or it's our understanding. No, you're presenting your point, your interpretation, so just state the point without any first person. No we's, no I's, no you's. Do not talk to the reader saying you'll see this. No, do not do that. This is not how you write an essay. So no I's, no we's, no you's, no my, no mine, no our, no your. Please avoid those. Rather, this research paper is a critical analysis of literature. So you're not going to give plot, you're going to focus on the critical understanding of what these works represent. One of the major aspects that you have to pay attention to, and hopefully you have been, all sources for this research paper are to come from the TVCC LRC. No other sources. Do not go elsewhere. Do not have DOI.org as one of your URLs. That doesn't work, folks. I'm going to show you what it will look like for the Works Cited page here in just a moment. The LRC research databases, the two I'm going to show you, and there are a couple others you can look at, but the two I'm going to show you, they have citation tools. So all you have to do is copy and paste that in, and then adjust it a little bit for the hanging indent. So that's what we're going to be looking at here in just a moment. So you are going to have your sources. You have to have at least 5 secondary sources. The works of literature that you look at are called primary sources. They do not count in these 5. The secondary sources are the critical articles that you use to supply supporting information to your points. That's what that's for. So you're going to be around 2,000 words. Should not take long to do that. And as it says here, not fulfilling these requirements. Sources coming from the TVCC research databases, a minimum of 5 secondary sources, 2,000 words. Not fulfilling these requirements, 1 or all 3, will result in a failing grade. You are to follow the MLA format. Under the publisher of your textbook actually provides you with writing resources, and I have that set up as a module for you to look at. Likewise, AI material is not going to be accepted, wholly or partially. If the essay shows any percentage, that will be considered, as it says there, under the rules of plagiarism, which means failure on the assignment. Your topics that you may choose. Women in society. This is one of the focus ideas that was presented earlier in the semester and throughout the semester, especially when you look at a couple of the different novels. The lecture video that I did over Daisy Miller talks quite a bit about this topic. So this is throughout the textbook. In fact, as hopefully you folks have been looking at your textbook, a couple of you, when you've cited information on your papers you've turned in, you didn't cite the textbook, which you need to be doing that. It does talk about the role of women in society, or what they have been given or not allowed to have. It's that view. So you have different ones here. So you have The Awakening, you have Maggie by Stephen Crane, and you have Daisy Miller by Henry James. Very quickly, I give you a brief detail about each of those novels. So you have about Edna Pontellier making her decisions, Maggie struggling in her situation, and then Daisy Miller, who became literally the emblem of, in the early part of the 20th century, the all-American girl that was referenced. Daisy Miller was the example that was always used for that. So again, this is something we need to look at. So what you're asked to do, taking 2 of these 3 works, that means The Awakening, Maggie, Daisy Miller. You take 2 of these 3, Maggie, The Awakening, Daisy Miller, and you're going to comment about how each work, each of those 2, offers the individual and society, focusing upon the role that women have or have not been able to have. As the key points for you to think about, again, these are just bulleted points. They do not mean you have to discuss each one of these or every one of these. I just apply these as points that you could think about to help work on developing your research paper. And you will find supportive evidence from critical articles. Women, in terms of their fundamental motives, their attitudes toward their family, their involvement in illicit romance, the strengths and weaknesses of each character that each character shows, the idea of the figures as sympathetic characters, someone that you, the reader, would like and sympathize with, that the depth of the characters, and each of these 3 characters, each, in case you didn't read them, each one of these 3, Edna, Maggie, and Daisy, all die. Sorry to be a spoiler in case you didn't know that. I ask you to look at this and think about this issue about how that character has been presented, about whether the character comes across as immoral or is instead a commentary about the lack of appreciation each character had from society. And then the idea about the social codes that are reflected in each novel, how they either fulfill those or, as it says here, contrast with those standards. So again, looking at those three, it's not a plot summary, but a careful analysis. If you listen to the video that I did earlier in the semester, I talked about some of those views and attitudes when I went through the different works, especially the one with Daisy Miller. Your second choice of topics is the Harlem Renaissance. Again, major issue there. You did write a question on the discussion question test. Some of you wrote about the Harlem Renaissance, the figures there. So again, I just very quickly gave you this idea about the Harlem Renaissance, what it represented, the different authors that are involved with that. And again, I list these for you, and they are all in Volume D. So you need to look at the works there in Volume D. So I ask you to take two of the authors who are listed here, Claude McKay, Countee Cullen, Zora Neale Hurston, Langston Hughes, Nella Larson, Jean Toomer, and Sterling Brown. And I know that earlier I spent more time with Claude McKay, Countee Cullen, than Langston Hughes. Probably more with Jean Toomer than I did with the other three. But this gives you an opportunity to look at these three as well and choose two. So you're going to look at works by two of these, and you're going to discuss how those works represent and present the changing state of American culture. How did these particular works represent how America is altering its perception of itself and of people during this era in the early part of the 20th century? And so again, I give you some points you might want to consider thinking about. You do not have to, but just some points to think about. How did the environment of Harlem facilitate that growth of literature? What are some of the themes that are recognized? What do they, as you're choosing your two, do their works have common themes? How are those common themes presented? How do the works present the roles that these writers see as the African American taking on? And how are they offering a commentary about society? Not only the society in which they were written, early part of the 20th century, but even now. Because these works have held up and can be examined further, and they make decided comments that have a pertinence for today. So again, you're going to look at themes and key features. You're not going to offer a plot summary. And again, you're going to incorporate the critical articles to help you in developing your ideas. The third topic moves us into the 20th century, the last volume basically, Volume E, as you'll see here. And so again, in the textbook, and again, hopefully you have read the introductory materials for each of the sections as you move through the textbook. Those introductory sections offer some good thoughts, some views that you can consider as you're looking at those. Again, it talks about the new generation being in search of meaning and identity. That's from the textbook. You have comments about different authors. So I have listed Arthur Miller and the concept of the American dream and his death of a salesman. August Wilson, looking at different views in his plays. Toni Morrison, who I believe is quite often underappreciated, although she won the Nobel Prize for Literature. You just didn't hear much about even when she won that. But she's an, I think, underappreciated author. And then Rita Dove, another one who explores issues, and Billy Collins, who at one time was the Library of Congress poet, which made him the American Poet Laureate. So again, looking at those. And I ask you to select two, again, of these authors. And you're going to look and see what their works do in the sense of, as it says in the book, radical changes in American life. Looking at their themes and their details. Again, discussing following points. You're not limited to these. You're not necessarily even restricted to these. But in what ways do the works you have selected by the two authors represent changes that have occurred in American culture since the end of World War II, since the 40s into now, the last 80 years basically. How do these works that you've selected discuss the role of the individual, the choices that the individual must make, must deal with in regarding circumstances, what social issues are reflected in the selected works, and what are the works saying about those social issues? And then, of course, in what ways do they suggest change not only for American culture but global culture? Because these authors are also globally. As I mentioned, Toni Morrison won the Nobel Prize. That's not limited to America. So again, looking at these are points that you need to consider and look at. You do not have to do those. This is your final exam. It's due technically next Saturday, it says by 5, but the assignment actually is staying open through next Sunday. So you basically have 1 week to get this all finished. And I'm trying to get this to, oh, that was interesting. Sorry about this. This is not working well. For some reason, there we go. All right. For the library resources, got that back. Sorry about the glitch there. I told you I'm using this particular one. It just doesn't like to work too well. When you look at the library resources, you go here and click this, and this is a screen that pops up. So you go here under Research Database, and you will see English. And when you click on English, this screen pops up. The two that I recommend are Bloom's Literature and Gale Literature. I have Bloom's Literature already opened. This is what it looks like when you go here. So if you were going to look up, let's say Langston Hughes, we'll just, well, I'll tell you what, let's go with Stephen Crane and Maggie. We'll do that one. Quite often it will give you a suggestion so you don't even have to finish typing. And then it gives you background on the author and some of the key ideas. It also offers you, at Bloom's, well, I want to start with it, how to write about Stephen Crane. So if you're trying to figure out approaches, ideas, how do I take this topic about the women figures? Well, they give you some views about Stephen Crane, details of this, and it talks about some of the details, such as some aspects about his life. And then down here, talks about strategies, themes you can observe, the importance of community, romantic illusions, the idea about Crane's soldiers, because he's noted that, but it talks about women. And so you have details about how to approach the women, what he does. Says the most obvious is Maggie. How are they portrayed? So he says here's some areas you might want to look at. The idea about the fallen woman image. And so you can look at the idea about strong women, weak women, details there. And so it goes on to those aspects. And then if you look up over here, you'll see that Bloom, Harold Bloom, was a professor at Yale, published a book. People who have kept this series going, of putting together collected articles. You'll see that it says how to write about Stephen Crane, just in general. And then you will see how to write about Maggie, a girl of the streets. So you have this one. Again, some details about Maggie, its history, the details, strategies, the themes that are in it. You can look at those and probably tie those into the issue about the women in society, the idea about values, about what society's values are, the idea about the characters, and again, Maggie, mentioned, of course, and then the other characters, Jimmy, Mary, Pete, especially Pete, and then the idea about the context and the background to it. This idea about prejudice against the Irish is part of it, and then some other views that are offered. So it offers you some details here that you can look at and think about and present. Again, the idea about the symbols, very important in that one. And so you have that aspect to look at. So you can look at Bloom's for that one, and that's how you find articles. This would be an article if you found anything in there to use, and then here are the citations. And all you have to do is copy and paste this, just like this. If I can get this to work right. Bear with me, as I said, this is I'm using an older laptop. It's the only one I had here. I have the other one left at my office. So when Word pops up here in just a moment, and I guess I should have had this already open for so we could use. I knew I was going to be doing this, but just give it a little bit of time. It takes a while, but eventually gets there. And so I paste it, and then I have to fix it. Well, it's easy to fix. I just go up here to paragraph. I want to change to hanging indent. I don't want any before and after spacing. I don't want to put any extra space between paragraphs, and I want it set at double spaced. And there you go. That's how your citation should look. It's double spaced. The first line is against the left margin. The other lines are tabbed over appropriately. You will see the URL where it shows where this comes from. The Online Info Database. You should not have something saying TVCC Literature Resource Center. It doesn't have to say that. That's not where it comes from. It should not say DOI.org ever. It should have the source here. So let me go back to the, there we go. And so close that out. And that's just one over Maggie. So if I were going to look further, let me go back and go back again to the search results. I had to put in Stephen Crane. Now I can go up here to criticism, and you have a number of critical articles here. A reevaluation of Stephen Crane. It looks at different works. The idea about the transformation of the Bowery. The Bowery is a key part of Maggie. Here's the article about Stephen Crane and the Fallen Women. This is an interesting article to look at. Again, you'll see that it talks about different figures and characters. It talks about his poetry that he also wrote. But it also talks about some of his other works and the details and views there. Of course, one of the key aspects, if you know the background of Crane, his wife, Cora, was, we'll call her a fallen woman also, I guess, but he fell in love with her and did not worry about her past. Here you see about where it starts talking about Maggie. And the details here, Maggie is presented in this way, and how it was reacted to, expressed the idea about the character itself, about Jimmy, Maggie's brother, and what he could do, Maggie's downfall. Says, were a conventional set of causes: poverty, the harsh life of the shop girl, search for excitement of a tedious life, the idea about blame for Maggie's fate on the women of the slums, this idea that she had moves through the situation. So you look at some details here and how that's offered. And again, that's an article. That is actually a fairly good article to look at. Again, the citation for it is simply right here. I copy this. I'm going to put it above here because I want to make sure it's in alphabetical order. I paste it, and there it is. So again, it's fairly easy to find and cite the articles within the essay in your research paper. Of course, the parenthetical citation would simply be green because that's who wrote the article. Again, you can find other ones here. You can also just go up and put under the search, you can just put Maggie. Excuse me, roll tap on. And then there's how to write about Maggie Girl of the Streets. Here's a comment about Maggie, a Girl of the Streets. Here's a further comment about it. Since I just put Maggie, it's going to give me a number of different ones. if I do Maggie, a Girl of the Streets, a little more specific title, bear with me as I'm trying to get all this taken care of. There we go. If I did that one, it would be a little more specific, and you can see that the articles are here for you to look at just for this one. There's background to Maggie, a Girl of the Streets. There's essay topics, suggestions there. They have some points in those. But you have a number of these different ones here to look at. That some of these are very short, some of them are a little longer. Again, this one is fairly straightforward, where the idea about how Maggie is, and the idea about the analysis here, and the details, what it shows in regard to Mary, Maggie's mother, this idea about the context of her, where, of course, Maggie becomes, of course, a woman of the streets. So you have the details here that are offered. So again, articles are here. If you chose to use this one, some comments out of that one, again, very easy to do your citations. Since it's Evans, again, we'll start working backwards here. And then, of course, what we need to do is to put the title, Works Cited. And then go back here, and you'll see the margin goes back to the left. And so this is how your Works Cited page for your research paper should be looking. Title is Works Cited. The articles are presented in the hanging indent form. That's what this is called. They're listed alphabetically. So this is kind of information you can look at from those sources. The other source that I recommend is Gale Literature. It's also very good. We're going to go to this one. We'll put in The Awakening by Chopin. I'm going to do it down here underneath the advanced search. I'm going to put the author's name. And quite often they will give a suggestion to you. Once there we go. It pops up. And then down here, I put in The Awakening. And it'll show you The Awakening, K. Chopin novel. I can do either one of these or this one. We'll do that one. And then you search. And here are articles over that one. What's nice about the Gale group, they let you know how many words are there. This one is just a very, very short little commentary. It was when the novel came out, this was part of a review of it. This one looks at chapter 4 from the book and offers a little bit of comment. This one is a nice article. I guess it's just an excerpt from it. Well, it talks about the building of the character, the idea of the coming to that part. And this one talks about symbolic language and the idea of action, as it says here. But it's a nice comment. It's a long commentary, 11,000 words. But what the Gale also will do for you quite often at the beginning, before you get into the actual essay itself, they give you an abstract telling you what the key point or points will be in the article. The idea about Chopin's use of language symbolism to show 3 gender role reversals, that Edna's experiences with dominance in a relation to a man illustrate the inequity that's part of this era, which fits into the topic. So this article has some part of it. These are, if you'll notice, there are over here other articles more like this. And so suddenly here's 3 more articles right there. And again, you have citation. So it's right there for you. Copy this. And again, paste it onto your works cited page. Purdom comes before Smith. So we'll do it this way. And there you go. You will note that, again, the URL shows what resource it came from. In this case, the Gale Literature Resource Center. There's your URL. It shows where it was originally published. The details there. You do not see doi.org. You do not see anything other than the fact that it says Gale and Blooms. And that's how you want to have on your Works Cited page. So when you go back to the articles, and again, there are a number of these to look at. This one is an interesting one to look at. But again, some of these are a little longer, so let's go back here. And you'll see that there are more articles here to look at. This is just an overview. Very quickly walks you through the novel and offers you a few critical comments. It doesn't take that long to go through. This one is, it says The Forgotten Novel by Chopin. It looked at some of the themes in the work, and that is a good one. And again, this is an important one also, Dress and Undress, how that becomes symbolic. So again, these are some articles you can look at for those. So again, all these authors are up here for this one. If you were going to look for Langston Hughes, for instance, if you're going to do topic number 2, you'll see that he's down here. And so you have criticism over Langston Hughes, different works. Some of these are strongly done in the sense of some of the ideas that they're presented. This one talks about dream politics in the poetry, which is interesting comments against a nice article. You have, I'm looking for a particular one. Well, this one's interesting. There was a movement called Negritude that took place, and Hughes reacts to that idea. It was more on the European continent. This one is a good one about art and politics. It's a very short little comment. I mean, it just makes a little remark. When I say good, it doesn't do much. It's not very long. I mean, that's basically it right there. You can access this. It's all about a dissertation, but it offers a little comment here. Focus on the interplay of politics and artistry. The main line, that this idea that Hughes is political consciousness, the theme that he looks at, and that's an important aspect to it. And again, you can look at these over here on that one. So that one has a little comment right here that Hughes in his poetry had a political consciousness, explored often in themes and subject matter. Well, that little comment may be all you want to take from this. And again, you don't have the whole dissertation here. But it does offer you this particular aspect here. And again, it's a nice little comment to look at that you can possibly incorporate. So again, some of these are very simple, very short. Some of these are longer. Let me go to, because I'm looking for a particular one. I don't want to do the, well, the Dream Deferred is one, but I'm not going to look at that. I don't want to look at that one for you guys right now. But again, some of the details here are offered very quickly. Some are very short, but some of them are done very nicely. This is okay. This is it. It's a long article, but it does look at his poetry and the idea of his views and details. While he tries to offer, again, here's a little abstract. Gale always gives you a little summary of the article. About what we're looking at. It represents, as it says, an early internationalist challenge to the rise of ethnic nationalism after World War I. And so, again, something to look at and to think about with his work. And so it goes on and looks at his comments and details, and it looks at some of his work and the views and attitudes, and it looks at particular works down here. Yep. Talk about some of the works in this way. So again, it's a nice article, has some good comments to it. So that's where you want to go. If I go over here to Blooms and I put in Langston Hughes, I can find something very similar. Yeah, there you go. say, should give me the suggestion. And there you go. And again, looking at criticism and views, how to write about Langston Hughes, offers some comments. Here, criticism about individual works. There's about the internationalist poetry, what I was just talking about in that other article. The idea of Hughes during the Cold War, some of the comments there. The idea about his, this was an article was also over at the Gale Group about the bebop modernism. Again, some of these are really nicely done. This one's looking at jazz and the modernist lyric. The idea about Langston Hughes pioneering in that way. Really, again, another good article. And then here it talks about the American Dream and Langston Hughes. That's also one to look at, to think about, because it offers an interesting view and attitude and brings that in. And this one also, different article, but still talking about the American Dream. So you have several of these articles that you can look at. So when you go to the library resources, off of your, you just click here and then, again, research databases, click on English, and then all this pops up. And again, these are a couple of the better ones to look at. This one can be a little touch and hit or miss about what you can find. It's not as user-friendly as the other two, so be careful about that one. You can look at details and offer, and again, you can search it, advanced search by subject, title, etc. And so you do the advanced search. And you simply type in what you're looking for. We'll go with Arthur Miller. And search. I thought that's what was going to happen. And so we have a number of these about death of a salesman. You can click on it. These are all about the images. Again, they just have quite a bit. As JSTOR's a little tough trying to find everything. They're just going to show us images of it. Bear with it just a moment, just so you can see this idea. If we go back here, we'll go back to this one. We'll look for the articles. You have some views about the details about Arthur Miller as un-American. This is a good article. Nature of Tragedy and Death of a Salesman. Miller himself wrote an article about tragedy in the modern man when this play premiered in '49. He had told people it was a tragedy. The critics reacted saying it doesn't qualify as tragedy, so he wrote an essay and had it published in the New York Times, which he defended the idea of tragedy and his play, and that tragedy does no longer have to apply to Greek heroes or Shakespearean heroes, that nobles, people of high rank, are not the only ones who can be tragic heroes. And this is a good article to look at. It really is a nicely done one. This one talks about why Arthur Miller is important, and looks at the work and details. Looks at a couple of his other plays. You can find some comments there. Again, you have some different aspects there. And so you have political issues and trust in the government. Arthur Miller was part of that. And this idea about self and tragedy is an interesting article. So you have several of these aspects here that you can look at and go through. Again, this is where you want to look at for articles. To find those, you'll see there's like 8,000 of these over Arthur Miller. Morality in Modern Drama. This is a nicely done article where, again, Arthur Miller is being interviewed. He makes comments about that issue. And so, again, since that's part of the issue for that third topic, you might find some of his comments useful to use and then springboard and develop from there. So, again, this is how you can find your sources. I'm going to go back here. So, again, let's go back to the topics. I'm going to try to close this down. I'm a little over 30 minutes now. So again, the topic itself, what you are asked to do for it. Let's collapse all these. Here we go. Under your textbook, this is where you access the textbook. Hopefully you folks have been reading through that and all the assignments. This is materials from Norton, where it offers some details about the book and a chapter study plan. These are the writing resources. This is the last thing I want to go through. How to write your literary analysis essay. Offers some good comments. How to write about American literature. And then you have about researching American literature, developing your thesis, revising your work, and so you can look at some of these details. But researching American literature just talks a little bit about these details. Then it gives you the guidelines for how to meet MLA standards, and then you have these videos that hopefully, again, you've been looking at. How an essay works, using quotations, MLA citations. That's part of what you need to be looking at. So again, looking at those ideas. This one, it's about the literary thesis. It's a very simple little video. It doesn't take, well, it's longer, well, it's not a very long video, but it just offers you some little comments here about what a literary thesis should be. It takes a while for this to load up on this older computer, but it just walks you through it. And so it just goes through about that aspect. So I'm just going to have to, we don't want to have to wait for that one. But again, you might want to go through that very quickly. They don't take long to watch. It just, as I said, I'm dealing with an older computer and it's not one to work too well. But again, details there. Within each of the sections, of course. For instance, in Volume E, I gave you the PowerPoint Volume E about different writers. There's a PowerPoint over Death of a Salesman here. So you can look at that aspect. I have you some other readings to look at. Article by Arthur Miller when he responds to Death of a Salesman. There's some material from the publisher here as well that hopefully you've looked at. Offers some really nice comments. Here's some about a couple articles about Death of a Salesman representing the American Dream, and then the counter to it that's not the American Dream. In this one, this is from the publisher. It just gives you sort of very succinct points there to think about. Decided about the post-war literature, cultural mixtures, this idea of other aspects, this idea here about new ideals of conformity, and it mentions Death of a Salesman. So again, points that you can look at here may help you with those. So that's underneath the different modules. And again, part of that was hopefully what you have looked at and read as you've gone through the modules, because those are there for you. And then, of course, the research paper itself, which is your final exam, is listed here. Click on it. You'll see the topics. You'll see what you're asked to do. And then what you're also asked to do for that research paper is to submit this a second time to, in this case, not to turn it in, but to SpeedGrader. This is not a grade. The college collects data that we store. All I do once you submit it, and after I grade your research paper, I come to this rubric and click these little areas here. Did you meet expectations? Did you not meet expectations? In other words, did you make a 70 or better? That's all I do. It does not impact your grade. It's just this is just what we do. Because Turnitin does not allow TVCC to access its files, and therefore it can't collect the articles or the writings. We have to have you submit your writings to SpeedGrader, because through Canvas, our people in distance learning can actually access and store these as a file. I will fill out a little chart, a little form that just says how many attempted, how many did not attempt, how many mastered or met expectations, how many did not meet expectations, how many therefore did not turn in the assignment. And so I just fill that in. And that's data that's going to be used in case anyone wants to check, as it says, how we're doing, in the sense how our students are doing. I doubt if anybody will ever read your research paper from a committee coming to evaluate the college, but they might, which is why we have to have them there. And so we have to harvest them. That's the term that is used. We have to harvest them from SpeedGrader. So I need you to submit it here after you've turned it in to turn it in. The standard way of submitting your work. Just click on the gray bar and submit it to turn it in. Then come back, open up the LEAPS assignment, and click here and submit it again. It's not a grade, but I will give you a 5-point bonus on the final grade of your research paper. So that since the research paper does count a certain percentage of your work, and again, if you want to know that percentage, just simply go over here, and it'll show that the research paper is 20% of your grade. So that, again, that 5 points can be very useful for you. So what I need you to do is please make sure not only do you submit it to turn it in, but come back and then submit it as the LEAPS assignment. If you do have any questions as you're working on your research paper, and I know that you've already begun working, please let me know. Please remember where to find your research. You go to Gale or Bloom's. Those are the better two to look at. You have a couple other choices as well, but those are the best ones. You access those by going to the library resources and simply clicking on this. Give it a moment. Clicking on English, it works better that way, and then choosing Bloom's, choosing Gale, and then there's a couple other ones you can look at too, but those are the better two. And you can see how easy it was to find it. Again, they have the citation for you. You just have to copy and paste it and fix it by going to paragraph. And you do this with your essay as well, where you tell no extra space between the paragraphs, double space, and you're good. And then, of course, also what you want to make sure that you do is that your essay does meet MLA standards, that it's written in paragraphs, folks. You were very young. They told you you're supposed to indent every paragraph. Well, you indent by hitting the tab button and making sure you don't have extra spaces, making sure that you're not writing about, well, I believe this or I think that. We don't want your personal thoughts. We want an objective commentary about the works of literature that will be supported by evidence from the works of literature and also from critical articles that you then discuss. So please make sure you do that. Again, there is a sample research paper. It is from 2327. I have not received permission from students in 2328 and past semesters to post their paper. I'm going to try to see if I can contact one from a couple of years ago, see if they will let me do it. And so, again, this is the example research paper. It's taking a little time to load it. Here we go. Hopefully soon it'll load. There we go. You'll see I took off the header, and this is the heading, and this was they had a commentary about the writer and the work, and so this is, but you can see the paragraphing that was done and how that was done. You can see the citations that are put in here, where it's looking at Levine from the work, and also about they had to read a particular critical article for this one and react to what that writer said and how to support or argue against it. Again, there's your works cited. And you will see different ones here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 different ones, plus the Levine is the actual Edgar Allan Poe. They use some of the background for that part. So you have all these different articles and formatting citations in that way. So again, your paper should look like this, not read this way. Their topic was very different. But yours should at least look like that when you get ready to turn it in. If you do not have paragraphs, that means you don't have it tabbed over. If you have extra spaces here, if you do not tab over for every paragraph, the first one, the second one, all the way through, then you are not following MLA format. So please make sure you're following MLA format. And again, you have about a week to get this finished. That's more than enough time now, since where you can find all your resources are easily found online at Gale or at Bloom's. And hopefully you've had your idea. You've been developing or going through the reading, making sure you're looking at those assigned works. And again, you have 3 topics, choice of 3 different topics for the assignment. The first one, of course, is about women in society. The second one is about the Harlem Renaissance. I know we spent some time on that one. And then the last one is about 21st century changes, how we're moving from the 20th into the 21st century and all that takes place there. So, as it says, American literature since 1845. That which has happened over the last 80 years, which in the scope of literature is really not that long. So again, I'm looking forward to reading these, and I hope, again, if you have any issues or questions, just please let me know.